Dear students, you are heartily welcome to the National University online class. I, Mohammad Khairuzzaman, an assistant professor of English at Govind Devendra College, Manikganj, will be with you for the next 40 minutes, and I'm going to give you the lecture on Advanced Spencer, Book 1, Canto 1. And I hope you will enjoy the lecture, and obviously you will be benefited by attending the lecture. Dear students, welcome to the National University online class. During this pandemic, I feel proud to be the part of this National University online class lecture as a resource person. Please maintain the health rules. Let us start. The Fairy Queen is an English epic poem by Advanced Spencer. You know it better? In the last class, we discussed about the Fairy Queen. Fairy Queen refers to Queen Elizabeth I. And this book was first published in 1590 and then republished in 1596 together with book 4 and 6. The Fairy Queen is notable for its poem. It is one of the longest poems in English language, as well as the work in which Spencer invented the verse from known as Spenserian stanza. And you know the Spenserian stanza AB, AB, BC, BC, C. And what is the theme of the poem? On a literal level, the poem follows several knights as a means to examine different virtues. To show the different virtues, he uses the characterizations of knights. And though the text is primarily an allegorical work, it can be read on several levels of allegory, including its praise of Queen Elizabeth. It is an allegorical poem. It is an epic poem. In Spencer's Letter of the Authors, he states that the entire epic poem is cloudily and wrapped in allegorical devices. And the aim of publishing the Fairy Queen was to fashion a gentleman or noble person in virtuous and gentle discipline. Spencer presented the first 3 books of the Fairy Queen to Elizabeth I in 1589, probably sponsored by Sir Walter Raleigh. So we can have a great idea and good idea about the epic poem, The Fairy Queen. Fairy Queen refers to Queen Elizabeth I, and it is an allegorical poem. It is an epic poem, and the theme of the poem is about the virtues that are very necessary to correct the society, to amend the society, to correct the religion and amend the religion, and to retain the glory of God with the virtues that have been endowed upon human beings by Lord Jesus Christ. Actually, this poem is written on the favor of Anglican Church and rejecting the corruption of Roman Catholicism, means Catholic Church. And Advanced Spencer was a very strong supporter of Anglican Church. And in his poem, we allegorically find the virtues and the knives that are necessary to reform the Roman Catholicism's corruption and to regain and retain the correct formation of religion. Now we are going to make a detailed summary of the stanzas. At the very beginning of Book 1, Book 1 begins with the poet's invocation to Cleo, the muse of history. In invocation, the poet says that his purpose in writing this epic is to describe the heroic deeds of noble knights, the faithful loves of knights and ladies, and to imbue his poem with moral significance and moral appeal. Means he shows what is the purpose of him. Is to heroic deeds of noble knight, faithful loves of knights and ladies, and to imbue his poem with moral significance and moral value. Okay. We meet a young and gentle knight riding through a plain. At the very beginning of the canto, we find that a young and gentle knight riding through a plain. He is wearing armor that is clearly seen action. Both must have just acquired the armor since he himself seems inexperienced. So we find that he has own armor and a shield in his hand, and he's moving forward to face any encounter. Third one, he seems like a good-humored kind of guy, definitely ready for some fighting. He's ready for some fighting. On the breastplate of his armor, and on his shield, a bloody cross is painted, out of respect and adoration for Jesus and his crucifixions. So the cross indicates Jesus and crucifixion. Red Cross is very faithful and loyal man. He is very faithful and loyal man. Devoted to Jesus Christ. He is devoted to Jesus Christ. But he also seems a bit sad. Why he is sad? Because Red Cross Knight was feeling sad for the corruption of Roman Catholicism and Catholic church activities. We learn that he is about to begin an exciting adventure given to him by Queen Glorina, the Queen of Fairyland, but also a reference to Elizabeth I. Means Elizabeth I, with the disguised name of Glorina, ordered the knight to drive the adventure and rescue the parents of Una and save them. He really wants to impress the queen. He really wants to impress the queen and keeps hoping something exciting will happen so that he can prove his worth. The quest he has been sent on is to slay a fearsome dragon. What is the target of him? As a dragon was ravaging the kingdom of Una's parents, and they were confined in the four walls, so his target is to slay the fearsome dragon. Riding next to him on a white donkey is a lovely lady, also very white, but whose face is hidden under a black veil, and his face is hidden under a black veil. She looks deeply sad, and by her side walks a milk white lamb. This is the very beginning and starting of their journey. Una and Red Cross Knight driving and riding on white donkey. The lady is just as virtuous as the lamb. Here the lady refers to the virtuous of the lamb, and she is from a formerly great and powerful royal family. But sadly, that family has been ruined by the terror of one scary dragon, and it is to help her and her family out that Red Cross has taken up this quest. But sadly, that family, means the family of Iona, has been ruined by the terror of one scary dragon, a very fearful dragon, and it is to help her and her family out that Red Cross has taken up this quest. Why Red Cross has made the journey? To rescue the parents and the family of Iona. Pulling up the rear is a dwarf. Pulling up the rear is a dwarf who is going kind of slowly, which makes sense since the poor guy is in charge of carrying all her stuff. And an attendant was also with them, and he was a dwarf. As they walk, it gets very cloudy and suddenly breaks into a terrible storm. Whenever they started their journey, they faced a very bad weather means the sky became cloudy and suddenly broke into a terrible storm. The rain falls so severely that they all realized they need to find cover. It was a torrential rain. As luck would have it, a nice shady grove happens to be nearby. A nice shady grove happens to be nearby. They think it might be a good place to rest since it is very dark and full of windy paths leading into the forest. So they took shelter there. In they go, and happily they can hear some birds chirping, who must also be hiding from the storm. Means the birds are also taking shelter. The birds certainly are happy about how many wonderful trees there are here. Pine, cedar, elm, poplar, oak, laurel, fir, willow, birch, myrtle, beech, ash, olive, plantain, palm, maple, so pretty much every tree ever. They wander around this tree-filled area until the storm passes. But surprise, they have gotten lost. There are just so many different ways to go. They begin to doubt themselves and become completely confused. Here, there are a lot of paths refers to the different paths, a lot of paths, but they have to choose the right path. Finally, they just choose the one that looks most used and figure that is a good sign. They thought that the road might be good for them to continue their journey. Soon they get to a cave in the thickest part of the forest, and Red Cross dismounts to investigate. The lady wants him to be careful, reminding them that they have no idea where they are and that danger can lurk anywhere, sometimes emerging without any prior notice. It's a very good warning by the owner to Red Cross that you are going to explore what was there, but there might you encounter with dangerous things. So be cautious. Red Cross says it would be cowardly not to investigate. And besides, he is a good person and good people prevail even through darkness. Red Cross took the risk to explore what is inside there. Not really, says the lady. In fact, she actually now knows where they are, and it is such a bad place she would rather have Red Cross be a bit cowardly than face it. Not really, says the lady. In fact, she actually now knows where they are. Terrible timing. The time was not good. And it is such a bad place that she would rather have Red Cross be a bit cowardly than face it. And in such a way, you want Red Cross. But it is too late. She goes on to explain that they have arrived in Error's den. Error's den. And that Error is a horrible monster. The dwarf recommends they leave immediately, and they agree. They wanted, and dwarf warned him to leave the place as soon as possible. But Red Cross doesn't listen. And he goes into the cave and sees the monster, half serpent, half human. What the serpent looked like? Half serpent, half human. Her tail is huge and full of knots and stingers and takes up most of the cave. She has thousands of little monster babies, also weirdly shaped, who are feeding off her part after seeing Red Cross jump into her mouth. Error is not happy to see Red Cross and rushes toward him, but is momentarily put off by the shine of his armor since she hates light. Red Cross takes advantage of this and attacks her, forcing her not to leave and strikes her shoulder. How did Red Cross attack her? attacked her, forcing her not to leave, and strikes her shoulder on her shoulder. She is momentarily dazed by the blow, but then becomes even angrier, rushes on top of Red Cross and grabs him up with her tail. With her tail, the monster grabbed Red Cross. The lady, seeing that things are not going well, urges Red Cross to strangle the monster before the monster strangled him. And this was the advice of the Lady Ioana. Red Cross manages to free one of his arms and grabs the monster by the throat, which loosens her hold on him, but also causes her to vomit out disgusting poison that not only smells horrible, but is also filled with bugs, tappers, frogs, and toads. Though Red Cross manages to free one of his arms and grabs the monster by the throat, which loosens her hold on him, but also causes her to vomit out disgusting poison that not only smells horrible, but is also filled with bugs, tapirs, frogs, and toads. This vomit is just like when the Nile River in Egypt inundates, and out of its slush a bunch of weird creatures are born. Brain bite. The Nile is the major river in Egypt, and every year it inundates or overflows onto its bank, providing much needed irrigation for the soil. While there is certainly diverse wildfire near the Nile, there aren't any strange monster actually. Here the poet uses these to show that with the flood of Nile, there are a lot of dangerous animals and creatures might be born, and these creatures, these dangerous creatures might cause harm to the human being. And in this way, so there's this vomiting, just flooded him, and this is all the bad things actually. The smell of the poisonous vomit is so bad that Red Cross loses his strength. Seeing this, the monster then unleashes all her little offspring on him. They are annoying, but don't really seem able to hurt him. All the babies of monster were just lashes him, but they couldn't enable to hurt him. Red Cross feels just like a shepherd who, when the sun sets, gets attacked by nerves. They don't hurt, but they sure are annoying and hard to get rid of. Red Coat is now really angry and afraid, not so much of dying, but of the shame of not winning. So he bows to him and rushes at her with godlike strength and cuts off her head. And actually, he at last succeeded to cut off the head of monster. Her children freak out when she dies and run over and start drinking her blood, making her death their life. Red Cross is pretty grossed out by this and watches as each little monster, after drinking up his mother, actually bursts apart and dies. So we find that Red Cross is pretty grossed out by this and watches as each little monster, after drinking up his mother, actually bursts apart and dies. At last all the babies of the monster dies. Red Cross thinks that they deserve their death and is happy that these gross little enemies killed themselves without any help from him. The lady sees Red Cross victory and congratulates him, saying that he has shown himself to be worthy of armor and that he has won a great victory. She hopes many other great victories are in future. Actually, here Yuna congratulates him, appreciates him for his great victory, and she hopes that in future the upcoming dangers will be removed by the heroic activities and valor of the Red Cross Knight. They then find their way out of the forest by sticking to one path and following it to the end, and continue on their journey looking for adventures. Now, after completion of this monstrous death, they are moving forward and continue to their adventure. After a long time, they come across an old man with bare feet, a long gray beard, and a book hanging from his belt. He seems extremely sad, perhaps repenting for something he has done. Red Cross greets him and asks if he knows any super cool adventures in the area that he could begin. The old man pretty reasonably asks Red Cross why in the world an old hermit would know something like that. However, he can tell them all about an evil man who has done terrible things to the country they are in. Red Cross responds that he would love to hear about someone like that, since that is the kind of person who knights just live to kill. Here, he asks the old man if he knows about the upcoming dangers. He says that he doesn't know, and he can tell them all about an evil man, only an evil man who has done terrible things to the country they are in. In the country where they entered, there is terrible things. Red Cross responds that he would love to hear about someone like that. He says that any dangerous thing might come. I am not a fear and afraid of it, since that is the kind of person who might just live to kill. As a knight, as a virtuous man, this is my duty, is to remove all the evils and to kill the monster and the devil. The old man responds that this evil person lives in a faraway wilderness that no living soul goes to. The lady interjects and reminds Red Cross that he is pretty worn out from his last adventure and that he might want to rest that night before embarking on another fight. Yuna advised him not to move forwards to encounter the dangerous, uh, any danger, to reject him, and rather advises him to take rest as he already involved in a great fight with a monster. So he needs rest. The old man chimes in and agrees with the lady. The old man agrees with the lady, means Yuana, and Red Cross is convinced. They all spend the night with the old man. They all spend the night with the old man. The old man lives in a hermitage, a secluded holy place, far away from anyone else, with an adjoining chapel where he frequently prays. This means the priest of Catholic Church. He indicates the priest of Catholic Church, the old man, and he is a hypocrite actually. Even though the old man's is not the most happening spot, they all enjoy resting and hearing the stories the old man tells. Night falls and they all sleep very heavily, maybe too heavily. The old man turns out to be a magician and casts spell on them to give the nightmares. He casts spells that call up the wife of the god of the dead, other terrible magicians, and evil spirit from Thunderworld, one of whom he sends off to carry a message, another to stay with him and help with his evil mischief. Night falls and they all sleep very heavily, maybe too heavy. The old man turns out to be a magician. The old man actually was a magician and cast spells on them to give them nightmares. They give them nightmares. He cast spells that call up the wife of the god of the dead, other terrible magician. Other terrible magician, the wife of the god of the dead, and evil spirits from the underworld, one of whom he sends off to carry a message, another to stay with him and help with his evil mischief. He asks someone to help him for his evil deeds, and he casts a spell on them, and he is going to make a magic and want to harm Red Cross Knight. The messenger spirit heads straight for Morpheus, god of sleep. Morpheus, god of sleep, who lives deep in the earth. Even though the gates to Morpheus' house are locked, the spirit easily goes in and finds Morpheus. But he is fast asleep, lulled by soft noises from his cave, completely oblivious to the spirit's presence. Though the gates of Morpheus' house are locked, the spirit easily goes in and finds Morpheus. But he is fast asleep and lulled by soft noises from his cave, completely oblivious to the spirit's presence. The spirit tries everything to wake him up. Finally, mentioning the dreaded name of Hecate, a fearful witch, which at once rouses the sleeping Morpheus. A fearful Hecate, rouses sleeping Morpheus. The spirit explains that he has been sent by a magician named Archimago. What he says to Morpheus, that Archimago sent him, and that Archimago wants Morpheus to give Red Cross the lady, and the dwarf also dreams. Archimago wants Morpheus what he wants to her, to give Red Cross the lady, and the dwarf false dreams. Morpheus agrees and finds a strange dream to give the spirit. The spirit then takes the dream back with him, Archimago. What he takes from the sleep of God, he takes strange dream. Meanwhile, Archimago has been busy. He has turned the second spirit into a woman who looks exactly like the lady. Archimago turned the second spirit into a woman. This is the very important fact here, that he has made a new lady, turned the spirit a lady like Yona, who looks exactly like the lady who we only now find out in name Yuna. When the spirit returns with the dream, Archimago sends it to Red Cross and teaches the second spirit to imitate Yuna perfectly. Actually, the musician made a new lady, turning the spirit a new lady like Yuna, and told her to act like Yuna. Perfect. Red Cross ends up being cursed with sexually charged dream of Yuna, which once he wakes up seems to be true, since someone who looks like Yuna is lying seductively next to him. Red Cross ends up being cursed with sexually charged dream of Yuna, which once he wakes up seems to be true, since someone who looks like Yuna is lying seductively next to him. At this, he gets very upset, since Red Cross thought she was a pure and shy virgin. Sadly, this was a typical expectation men had of women in Spencer time. Men had of women in Spencer time. It was a very typical intentions. He decides to test her. Since she is behaving so out of character, she pleads with him, explaining that he can't blame her for loving him since God has made her do it. And if she can't be with him, she would rather die. He decides to test her who? Red Cross Knight. Since she is behaving so out of character, as Yuna is symbolizes truth, but this Yuna is not reacting or acting like the perfect virtuous woman. She pleads with him, explaining that he can't blame her for loving him. And very tactfully, the fake woman uh, expresses her love to him. Since God has made her do it, and if she can't be with him, she would rather die. And she actually emotionally made a blackmail to him that she would rather die. Surely, she says, he must understand that she has trusted herself to him and worries about him. Red Cross, for some reason, doesn't seem to quite get it and asks her again why she is bothering him. She bluntly explains that she loves him and it has been keeping her awake all night long. She bluntly explains that, instantly explains that she loves him and it has been keeping her awake all night long. Red Cross, who has never heard a lie before, is becoming a bit more convinced, as he had never heard a lie. So he is becoming convinced. He apologizes that he causes her pain and responds somewhat non-committal that her love is very important to him and reminds her that he has promised to never leave her. The spirit defeated by Red Cross conciliatory response leaves him alone for the time being. The spirit defeated by Red Cross conciliatory response and leaves him alone for the time being. Red Cross, still uneasy about Yuna's behavior, finally falls again into a trouble and sexualized sleep, but soon his dreams leave him in peace, realizing they are not working their evil magic. Red Cross, still uneasy about Yuna's behavior, finally falls again into a trouble. Again he falls into a trouble with the magic, with the attitudes of the uh, fake women and sexualized sleep, but soon his dreams leave him in peace, realizing they aren't working their evil magic. This is how he escaped himself from the evil touch of the women. Okay, this was actually the above discussion about details in each stanzas, and we learned the total stories and the encounter of the Red Cross Knight with the monster, and also how he was being convinced by the evil, and how did he retain his purity, his honesty, his truth, and his virtue. Now, dear students, the questions that are very, very important for you in this year, the first one is treatment of good and evil. Okay, let us discuss about good and evil. As we learn the story, we know that there are some good characters, means who are the good characters? The Red Cross Knight, Yuna, Dwarf, and the evil characters, monster, the old women, and the spirit. And this is how we can identify good and evil by analyzing the story. Number 2, Red Cross Knight's encounter with the monster. Red Cross Knight's encounter with the monster, we learned it, the total thing, we learned the total fight, and whenever we get the questions, we will answer it. And the last one is Fairy Queen, book 1, is blended with epic and romantic qualities. Now let us discuss about the questions. What is epic? An epic has some qualities. Epic should be written on a grand scale. The theme of the epic should be a grand one. There must have a hero, he must have a noble word, he must involve in war, but the interest should be for the nations, not for his own interest. And there have an underworld journey. There is an invocation to the muses, and there we find a very superhuman quality of the hero. These are the common characteristics of an epic. In Fairy Queen, we find some characteristics of it. The invocation of muses we find here a character who is extraordinary in character and superhuman qualities. We find in the Red Cross Knight, and later we find in King Arthur. Red Cross Knight has superhuman quality, and he involves in war not for his own interest, rather to save Yuna's parents and the kingdom and their kingdom. So these are the qualities that we find, and these are the similar qualities of the epic, but it is not total. And there are some romantic qualities that we find here. The romantic qualities, what we find here? We find here the knights and the ladies, they are involved in love. They are involved in love. And these love qualities and romantic qualities we find in the different characters. That is not found in epic. Actually, epic is very serious. But the poem is not like this. So we find here that a lot of many characters, and they are knights and gentle ladies, the evil characters and good characters, they are involved in fighting, and their romance, their love, gentle love, everything we find here. So this poem is blended with some epic qualities and with romantic qualities. And this is how you can prove that the Fairy Queen is blended with epic and romantic qualities. Dear students, hope we'll be able to answer all the questions. Thank you all to be with us for the last 40 minutes. I'm Mohammed Khairuzzaman, an assistant professor of English at Govind Ravindra College, was with you for the last 40 minutes. Wish you remain safe and sound. Bye.